Greetings, my name is Dr. Teresa Leary Handy, and I am here to present the research findings from the Gen 101 OER Project PASS, which stands for Plan for Academic Success. I completed this research with the assistance of Dr. Connie and Jennifer Dunn, whose primary roles were to create open educational resources for the research project. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation, so let's get started. Our learning outcomes for today. Participants will be able to identify strategies to incorporate open educational resources when working with students. Participants will be able to identify where UAGC open educational resources are located, and participants will be able to summarize the benefits of using open educational resources to increase a sense of belonging in the virtual classroom. The purpose of this study was to determine the effectiveness of open educational resources, OER, such as a textbook, supplemental materials, and resources in Gen 101 by utilizing, translating, revising, and adding to the existing open education resources. Explore the effectiveness of OER as reflected in assessment, feelings of belonging and inclusion, and diverse representation of materials. And finally, to determine how using OERs can increase student success and second course completion. Here are the research questions. How does the use of culturally responsive to what extent does the use of faculty-created open educational resources impact student success and second course completion? And how does the use of culturally responsive open educational resources correlate with students' self-reported feelings of belonging? In Gen 101, we have just under 100 associate faculty, but we were only able to get 9 participants. I think one limitation was the timing of the study, which was in July. We have lots of associate faculty who are on vacation. Our original plan of late spring, early summer was derailed by internal projects. So I do think that 10% is still a significant number of participants for the study. Related to the student data, the survey was sent to 256 students and was completed by 51 students. I worked with Tracy Borman to use a Qualtrics survey. I received the data in mid-August, and I've enjoyed analyzing the data that I will continue to do so as we progress through this project. Finally, we enlisted the help of associate faculty to contribute 7 new assets to the project. They received an honorarium of $25 each. The open educational resource assets that were created during this project were a Week 2 journal brainstorming video, which was created to help students understand how to complete their very first writing assignment in Gen 101. This video demonstrated how to formulate thoughts, how to organize the assignment, how to get a draft, how to seek resources at the university. And it was just a great way for students to see the writing process modeled for them. Another resource was called Locked In. It was a video presentation about establishing early momentum, and a lot of students that video really resonated with a lot of our students. Next, we have a discussion response student aid, and this was a document that was created to help students organize their discussion responses. Lots of positive feedback from students and faculty on using this tool. And then we had our podcast on grit, reflective thinking, SMART Goal podcast, and how to ask for help. Survey results for our students. As I mentioned, we had 256 students who were sent the survey, and 51 students responded. 98% said that they accessed the materials via the link provided by their faculty. 94% said the OER materials were helpful to their learning experience in Gen 101. And finally, 86% of the students surveyed felt that the OER materials helped them feel more connected to the course content and other students. Students had many comments about the connectedness of these materials to the course. One student said it was nice to have the materials available at all times, especially after hours as I needed clarification for work. Another student said the extra content gave a real life perspective on the topics covered in the course. Sometimes textbooks can be cliche, but the additional content really dove deeper. And finally, a student said the materials worked for me because the podcast was live, the people were talking and interacting, and it made them feel a part of the class. Accessibility is an important aspect of implementing OER. Right now, we are exploring ways to store the resources. Students and faculty reported that the materials were easy to access and use in the pilot, but we need to have a more stable and planned landing station, like a repository for all of our faculty to use. Um, the economic benefit to our students is great. After the initial creation, where there are costs associated with that, because we do want to make sure faculty are compensated for their labor. After the initial creation of these materials, the positives are great because there's a big bang for the buck. Because students automatically can use these resources and there isn't a cost to them for doing that. We do need to plan for updating and editing the materials as needed. Students responded well to the affordability of the materials and the ease of access to the course materials, as I said earlier. One student said the materials were very easy to read and it was accessible for all of their needs. It is very important that students know that we are trying to lower their costs while helping them remain career ready. 66% of the students surveyed were very satisfied or satisfied with the course, and 82% of the students did not have any issue accessing those OER resources. The students felt the material was very thorough and clear to understand. Eighty-six percent of the OER materials 86% of the students felt that the OER materials helped them feel more connected to the course. 72% felt that the OER were representative of a variety in perspectives, culture, and backgrounds. The student data centered on four themes: enhanced understanding and clarity of coursework, practical relevance and real world application, increased confidence, guidance, and accessibility, and fostering connection and interaction, meaning that social presence. Students reported that the materials helped them figure things out. It provided a clear understanding of the subject matter. It helped them understand the assignments, and it helped them feel more confident in knowing exactly what the assignment or courses were trying to teach them. Finally, students shared that it was nice to have the materials available and that it allowed them to, that the materials, some students said that the materials were interesting, but there were some students who said that the materials were not so interesting and that some of the podcasts and videos were not informative. I think we know that there will always be students who don't respond positively to course materials, and that's okay. Instructors shared their experiences using the new OER as well as the OER generated in the initial OER pilot, research pilot that took place last year. They felt very strongly that using the materials was not just for content delivery, but for fostering a positive, supportive learning environment and to build student confidence. There were some instructors who shared that they used the OER for targeted support for select students. Related to the integration and use of materials, some instructors confirmed that using all the weekly OER materials and supplementing them with the other pre-prepared course content was very good. Some use the new OER materials along with the older OER materials, and most instructors shared that they did not change or revise any of the materials. They shared how they dispersed the OER. They usually emailed it or they placed it in an announcement. Faculty reported that they thought the announcements were more effective than email and thought that if students have their notifications set, they will get the announcements in their email. Suggestions were to make the OER more relevant, actionable, and encouraging for the students. First, targeting the materials for each week. This actually has been the strategy of this project. Next, it was suggested that a brief narrative be added to the OER that explains the practical benefits of using these materials and introducing them to students. In addition, faculty suggested that the OER address student needs by weaving in information and resources based on the specific content of the students. For example, the context of the students. For example, many students are returning to school after a long break, so making sure that we incorporate materials that support them. Finally, faculty suggested highlighting school resources in the OER. 100% of the faculty surveyed felt prepared to use the OER resources. The survey showed a unanimous positive impact. 100% of the faculty felt the OER materials were more effective, either significantly or slightly, in supporting course learning outcomes. Here's some of the feedback from the instructors. One instructor said, "I think students are gaining more knowledge as a result of the OER materials. Their grades were improved and they appreciated the materials offered." Another instructor shared that when the OERs were posted in an announcement, there was much more engagement, more so than via email. Another faculty member shared that students were appreciative of the additional OER materials. For example, in week 1, 4 students responded that they are locked in, which is language from the locked in recording that they were given. The discussion forum help sheet post created several students posting their introductions and responding and interacting with each other. The reflective thinking post created several comments and responses from students. Another faculty member said, "I think the discussion forum help sheet really helped the students with the completion of that. I noticed after that, at least the initial post, students seem to be completing them more successfully. Specifically, it seemed any resource that tied directly to an assignment received the most engagement." A final statistic is that 88.9% of the faculty believed that the use of OER materials in Gen 101 impacts student preparedness for subsequent courses. Faculty view OER as a positive and significant tool, and they report that OER is considered a significant aid to teaching this course. And that is a sign that the courses are, and that it is a sign that the courses are up to date in every session and it meets the needs of the student. Faculty comments really centered on the practical use and strategic integration of OER materials. They were really concerned with how the materials are delivered to students and how they were organized. They didn't want students to feel overwhelmed with trying to keep up with all of the emails and announcement notifications. So that is something to take into consideration. One faculty member noted that a desire to better use them in subsequent courses, meaning showing a commitment to a continued OER adoption. And a key recommendation was to mandate the use of OER to ensure that students are benefiting. Student engagement. There were several responses related to the boost of student involvement and communication. One instructor noted that students were appreciative of the OER materials and had strong reactions. Once again, that locked in feedback from students. And the discussion forum help sheet and reflection podcast both showed up in discussion posts where several students posted their introductions and responded and interacted with each other positively. There was lots of robust peer-to-peer discussion responses, and one faculty member said that there was an increased student engagement and fewer students not participating and fewer students submitting late assignments. A key benefit of the OER materials is that they seem to clarify course expectations and content, leading to less time spent by the instructor on fielding questions or guiding discussions. Now, all feedback was not positive. Not all instructors saw the clear dramatic change that some saw. One instructor stated, "It's hard to say. It seemed to be about the same." Another reported, "I did not observe any obvious differences." And furthermore, an instructor noted that for those who were already engaged, it gave them a boost, but the overall effect wasn't universal. So how does this all connect to student success? The most prominent theme is the perception that OER materials positively affected students' grades and overall academic success. Several instructors noted a direct increase in higher grades and a decrease in low or failing grades. There was a perceived drop in the number of students who stopped participating and failed the course. One instructor said, "I only had one of those this time." Another theme, instructors believe that OER materials played a crucial role in boosting students' confidence and overcoming the psychological barriers to learning and completing work. The materials were thought to give students more confidence in starting their assignments and helping them avoid getting stuck or convincing themselves that they can't do the work. They were seen as tools that can help boost confidence and giving students the tools they need to succeed. The responses consistently highlighted another theme, that OER materials lead to better student engagement and a higher assignment completion rate. One instructor noted that the only students who did not succeed were two with health issues, implying a very high general success rate. Specific resources that were directly tied to the assignments, again, such as that discussion forum help sheet, were seen as particularly effective at increasing completion. There's a theme also that the most effective OER resources were those with clear tie-ins. So any resource that was connected to the assignments, that is what was most impressive for the faculty members. While the general feeling is positive, one response of the faculty is that there needs to be a clear metric to definitively link the OER materials to the application of learning. The instructor noted that although students expressed appreciation for the advantages of the OER, there was no metric to determine if the learnings were directly applied to their assignments. So in summary, the instructors largely perceive OER materials as a successful intervention that boosted students' confidence and engagement, leading to better grades and assignment completion. So the students who were surveyed were asked about their long-term goals, and these were some of the careers that these are the career tracks that really kind of were the themes of the participants. Education and childcare, human resources and general professional careers, healthcare and technology, business management, and law. Most of the students who shared their career goals said that they were trying to move up with their current employer since degrees are required for other positions that they're interested in. A significant portion of the responses indicated a plan to continue formal schooling or additional professional credentials immediately after or alongside earning this current degree. Others highlighted a desire to use their career and educational goals for personal satisfaction, making a positive difference, being a model for their family, and achieving long-delayed personal goals. So what are the recommendations? The recommendations for the implementation of OER are that we need to provide some professional development. And when asked about the type of professional development, the instructors provided this feedback. And this is the order of this is the ranking order that they believe faculty need to receive professional development. So number one, they think that it's important for faculty to collaborate with other faculty on OER. They think that there needs to be training on adapting existing OER. And number three, training on how to find OER. And finally, the technical support for OER integration. Those are the areas for professional development that the faculty identified. So I highlighted some of the limitations earlier of the study, and I wanted to revisit those. So some of the students were confused with the survey. Our students at UAGC receive a lot of surveys, and so they did find, I think that they were confused about the end of course survey. They were confused about receiving the survey for this study. And so I think that somehow defining this survey differently or sending it differently may increase the return of the study of the survey in future sessions. The time of the year, like I said, we did this in the summer, which was not the optimal time. Students have a different mindset. Faculty weren't as engaged in terms of working with contracts, so we had fewer faculty than I anticipated, and we had limited time and resources. Even though we were able to give the honorarium to the instructors. The amount of time and work it takes to create materials that are course worthy and demonstrate the subject matter expert level that we need it to in a course, it does take time and resources, and that is something that we will have to revisit. What are the next steps? So there's so much going on. The comments suggested that a successful course is not only delivering content, meaning OER, but it's also teaching high value transferable soft skills that students find immediately useful. Also, faculty really value the OER, but struggle with the logistics of ensuring every student sees and uses the materials. So those are some of the things that I really want to work on, is how do we create these robust materials that are applicable to our students and the world that they're living in right now? And then how do we logistically make sure that these materials are accessible for the faculty and the instructor? So I do also plan to continue to analyze the data, and I want to really pour into that second course completion. I'm right in the middle of trying to figure out how I'm going to do that. So patience around that. I'm looking forward to having submitting some conference proposals, and I'm doing this TLC presentation, as well as I am the inaugural OER faculty fellow for UAGC, and we are really working together across different departments, trying to figure out how we can continue the momentum around using OER in our courses. And I just wanted to share that the UAGC OER can now be found in the UAGC Hub as well as at OER Commons. If you would like additional information about that, I can definitely share that with you. One of the highlights of our research was that we were able to write a chapter that is now published in this book, Building Collaborative Learning Communities to Drive Student Success. And we were able to use our work with the cross-departmental relationships that we developed when we did our initial OER research to write this chapter. So very proud about that. And I'd like to thank Tracy Borman and the team and the Online Student Success Initiative Fund for allowing me the opportunity to complete this research, and Tracy for supporting me in creating the survey and analyzing that data. So I'm very appreciative for that. And thank you for watching. If you'd like additional information about where our OER materials are housed, you can feel free to email me and I can send that information to you. Again, thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.